have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
Hal Sparks, your comedian and multimedia personality.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hal Sparks.
All right, let's do this.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Chicago. Happy birthday to you. That's right. In 1837, folks, on this very day, the city of Chicago became the city of Chicago instead of that big pile of stinky onions that everybody used to point at and laugh. Yes, congratulations, Chicago. Looks like you've made it. And it's, and what a wild, wild ride it's been. You don't look you don't look a day over Blade Runner. So, that's true. So, March 4th, 1837, Chicago becomes a city. And,
madness.
And sometime this spring, sometime in, I would say, in spring of 2020, it ceased to be. Much like Portland. Rip Portland. Goodbye, Portland. There is no more Portland. The cities have all been burned down. According to Donald Trump, you can't walk down the street anywhere in Chicago without getting hit in the head with a bat. And look, again, I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum. If that's your idea of a good time, beats a sharp stick in the eye, I suppose. Then I go kink shaming again, Johnny. There I go.
Don't do it.
I'm not going to do it. But apparently, you know, we miss you, Chicago. You've fallen so long ago. And don't go to your window and look outside. And I don't know, what's the weather like today, Johnny? Is it
it's
pretty?
Sunny and nice.
Yeah. See, I don't believe you. I think you live in a crater, and they're just demons crawling out all over the place that look like the creatures from Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow. And nothing can convince me otherwise.
I love that movie.
I do too. It's the best sci-fi film of the last 30 years, hands down. So you were, by the way, before we came on the air, and good morning, everybody, welcome to the show. Johnny was telling me about the new Extreme song, and you're just gonna have to put up with
Nuno was very he's very moved by Eddie Van Halen's passing, and he felt inspired that somebody has got to keep putting guitar fire out there. Not that he's the one to take the throne, but he feels a responsibility. So his solo on the new single is unreal.
That's great. And I will say, I think I played no small part in that inspiration, considering that single was recorded.
Murdered Eddie Van Halen.
No, I know. That's terrible. No, because Extreme watched Nerd Halen at Monsters on the Mountain before that song was written, recorded, and released.
Nice.
Just before. Recently. In between the time. I'm just saying. And they stood in the back
of... If it weren't for you, there would be no Extreme music.
That's right. Yes, I'm personally responsible for all music that's considered as extreme. And I would like to apologize of all sorts.
Especially Cradle of Filth.
Yes, exactly. I want to apologize for all corpse paint Norwegian death metal. It was a mistake. Hey, look, even God made fleas. Everybody makes a mistake once in a while. I kid the death metal people. Go ahead and eat the brains of your lead singer or whatever the hell you guys do to be legit. Don't do that. Don't do that.
No, all right, but I think that actually did happen, didn't it?
All right, we've gotten it out of the way, Johnny Million, and we've gotten to the point where we recognize that I've been wrong before. However, on a minor level. And I've actually, I suppose, we can go back to just me being right about everything.
Yeah, there was one time you were mistaken, but you actually weren't
turned out
mistaken.
To be
you thought you were mistaken. Yeah,
that's right. I was under the impression that I was mistaken, and yet I was not. And that happens as well. And by the way, welcome chat room at infotainmentwars.com or twitch.tv/HalSparks, whatever your poison is, or on Facebook. Hi, Facebook people. Patreon.com/HalSparks, support the show. Help me feed Johnny Million. That's what we need to do. So we're trying to get
thanks to everybody here. It's really got to be only sparklers, and I am now an official Twitch affiliate.
Oh, that's nice. That's great. Which means you can sell Twitch Amway products at little coffee collatches.
I suppose you're wondering why I brought you all here today.
That's right. Yeah. Let me show you a dish you can burp. So this is the that's not one of our dishes, Flora. So let's go back. Let's go right back. Let's take the Wayback Machine to when everyone was panicking, and I, as I am wont to do, was telling everybody to cool out because the demise of democracy and the fall of, I guess, the structure of our government because of the Kevin McCarthy, Schlocktober takeover of the House, and the fear of these, I guess, committees that they were going to put. They're going to just grind the business of the people's house to a halt. Nothing will get through, and it will all just be investigations after investigations, and it's going to just tarnish the president.
That's what I was afraid of. I'm not going to lie.
And what was I telling you? I was kind of grinning and laughing a bit and going, "Oh, you, that's adorable."
You told me I was a no good for nothing dum dum.
That wasn't related to this though.
That wasn't about that.
No,
yeah,
that was a totally separate issue.
Yeah.
You know that, right? And again, an area where I was right.
Yeah.
In that particular arena, it's a very narrow sliver because the rest of you is magic. I just want to say, every big old thing you do is magic. Every little thing you do is a no good for nothing dum dum. Anyway, so
so what's really going on?
Obviously, I suppose they're eventually going to get around to investigating the hard drive that Rudy Giuliani bought in Ukraine from Russians before the end of Trump's reign, and brought it back labeled laptop, and everybody calls it a laptop. Eventually, I suppose they'll get around to that. And the problem that they're having is that the contents of the entire thing have been available for 3 years, and people have been pouring through it like lunatics, and they haven't found anything that points to a real crime. Well, guess what? That's a trend. Because the big, the big primary one that the Republicans were like clamoring for, the committee that they were putting together, headed by Jim Jordan, the Committee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government.
Oh, the event didn't go as planned.
Oh, it's technically ongoing. It just hit a snag mid-February, and they're gonna get it back together, whenever. The Democrats, after the deposition
the super chats are insane right now. How Vickery
Oh.
sent a super chat to buy me groceries.
This should be for some groceries. Oh, that's so sweet. It will
I
indeed.
can buy at least 5 eggs with that.
5 eggs. Actually, the price of eggs is going down. That's another thing we could talk about. Largely because the chickens are no longer dying in mass. But, all right, keep on topic, darn it, because we've got a lot to talk about today, and I've only got 2 minutes before the break comes, and I'm trying to set up a thought. So, Jim Jordan, who famously has never seen a disgusting crime that he's never seen one. He just kind of, if it happens, he just turns his back and pretends he hasn't seen it. Is in charge of this weaponization of the federal government, and this is a broad and far-reaching church committee-like gaggle that is supposed to address all the areas where Democrats and the derp state have attacked conservatives and violated their freedoms, and from the Jan 6 attack and the fact that apparently the FBI investigated people that beat cops and brought guns and Confederate flags and built a gallows and all that stuff. Apparently the FBI looked into that because those people said leading up to it that they were going to kill Nancy Pelosi and other people, tried to do it, failed, and then said in court, if I had another chance, I'd do it again. Apparently that's a bridge too far for the Republicans.
That's not the way you're supposed to work that plea.
Apparently not. It doesn't work very well. Apparently that's the one area where cash bail doesn't end, and that's what they're upset about, it seems. And then all the way from that to the Twitter files, the idea that the campaign of Joe Biden, by requesting that non-consensual nudes of his son be taken down, in keeping with the terms of service of Twitter, because they're not supposed to be up there anyways. There's not supposed to be any non-consensual nudes of anybody on Twitter. They just went, do you mind? And in some cases, not all cases, but most cases, they took them down. Whereas Trump threatened Twitter with being shut down from the office of the presidency. Threatened to sick the full force of the federal government on Twitter if they allowed Chrissy Teigen's insult of him to remain up. But it's the Bidens and the Democrats that are weaponizing a government, which, by the way, in terms of Biden and the campaign, were weaponizing a government they weren't even in. They were not. Biden was a private citizen running for office when all this happened. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, from behind the desk in the Oval Office, is ordering a private company to do things, or he's going to sick the government on them. Which
it's
would
amazing. The Democrats brought the receipts.
By the way, for the record, Matt Taibbi, unfortunately, it would seem, in Chicago, the Chicago Reader was always the primary source for unleashing this reality on people, is kind of a scumbag and is a nasty, nasty, disgusting human being. And on top of that, over a while, he tried to rehab himself by writing about issues I think we can all agree on, like, how bad Abu Ghraib was and those kind of things. But largely as a front, so that he could eventually, I guess, set himself up as the personal stenographer of a lunatic billionaire who heard somebody say, you could solve homelessness in this country with $10 billion and decided to buy Twitter with 4 times that amount of money and blame Democrats for what's happening on the street. So,
yeah, man.
Right. Yeah, just nasty. I mean, birds of a feather. But anyways, the Twitter files themselves, the biggest, dud of the Twitter files has been that even in and amongst the Twitter files, Taibbi and his cohorts have had to admit multiple times that there was no there. That there is always, whether it's, tweet number 7 in whatever run they do, where it says there were also lots of instances where the FBI or the government or the Biden campaign or the Trump White House asked Twitter to do something, and Twitter said, meh. They didn't do it. They just said no, or they went, we'll get around to it, and they never did, which means there was no force. And force would be the thing that would be largely unethical and certainly a violation of people's rights if the government tried to do that kind of outreach, and they never actually got to that because Twitter always could say no. If they didn't think it violated their TOS, they could say, nah, we're leaving it up. That means they were always acting independently on the free speech rights of the people that run the company and make decisions for the company because they've been hired to do just that. Guess what? Jim Jordan's weaponization committee is running into exactly the same problem with their 3 whistleblower prime witnesses, and the Dems released a 300-page report that yours truly has been tearing through for the last 48 hours, and I got some nuggets from that when we come back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, mega worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk, patreon.com/Hal Sparks. Support the show, help us out. Also, super chats. It's going to be hard to top Hal Vickery, but everybody's welcome to try. We're looking for one psychotic whale to just kind of, drop a will in there, and then nobody has to super chat ever again. But until that point, we need your help. We'll be back.
A whale?
Mm-hmm. A whale. You don't know what a whale is?
You're locked into the Hal Sparks radio program.
Mega worldwide.
Okay, so one of the things that Republicans have been bristling against for quite some time, Johnny Million, is this whole whistleblower thing. Trump got his, fortunately somebody blew the whistle on him repeatedly, and he's never gotten it over it. Multiple people, by the way, were blowing the whistle on him, and Trump seems to think that he's surrounded by spies and and turncoats, double agents, as it were. And the reason he thinks this is because he hires people who like him and think he's amazing and think he's exactly what the country needs. And then they hang out with him for a while, get a look at what he's doing, read some of the evidence against him, and suddenly they're like, dear Lord, this man is a creep, and we need to keep him away from the levers of power as best we can. And suddenly that means that they probably were always a Democrat or
they're always a spy. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It couldn't possibly be that someone recognized, after barely knowing him and knowing sort of the mythology of Trump, right? That it couldn't be that they went, "Oh, you're actually awful.
He's awful. Yeah.
You're a nasty, disgusting man." And quite frankly, and by the way, Philip Ittner will be joining us in the second hour today from Kiev. Lots going on there, certainly around Bakhmut, and there was a missile/drone strike inside Moscow. Source unknown, but a big story. We will be talking about that in the next hour. It's a huge deal. But yours truly, you can see on the live stream, has been going through this 300-page document from the Democrats, which, by the way, is a hilarious read because it is peppered with absolutely businesslike, completely, appropriate language that has this lovely hint of sarcasm throughout. There's like
Really?
it's like when somebody puts cinnamon on your hot cocoa. You know what I mean? It's just there. It's not necessarily in the cocoa itself. It's just that dusting on the top. And but you take a little sip and you know it's there. It's that throughout. And one of my favorite parts of it is that they literally start the thing out. They're addressing three particular fellows that came in and were interviewed. George Hill, Garrett O'Boyle, and Stephen Friend, and which no relation to Lewis, who is apparently a patient of Dr. Lecter's. Lewis Friend, yeah.
It's not
miss the rest of me. You know, Lewis Friend is the name I think he gives Jamie Gum when he's talking to the senator, and senator loved the suit. Remember, is that his name was Lewis Friend, but may have lied. That's all I can remember now, Mom.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. You
Yeah.
always go deep, Hal.
I do. It's true. And when I can't, I'll scrape the hell out of the sides. Now, when we have heard nothing from Jim Jordan except the whistleblower upon whistleblower. The phrase he uses repeatedly when he's on Fox News and other places is dozens and dozens. There's a stampede of whistleblowers coming to talk to Jim Jordan to tell him to tattletale on how the FBI was mean to the January 6th defendants. Now, we haven't seen this dozens. We just have to trust them. And Matt Gaetz announced at CPAC yesterday that he thinks Democrats should be removed from the committee because he thinks by pointing out that their whistleblowers don't have a whistle and aren't indeed blowing, that they should be removed from the committee because they're obstructing the investigation by pointing out that there isn't one and there's no there. So right out of the gate, they address these three guys, and they effectively say none of what they're saying qualifies as whistleblowing. Like none of them have any special knowledge of any decision that was made contrary to ethical rules within the FBI. None of them even make allegations of illegality. A lot of it, if you read it, it's pretty great because a lot of their testimony reads like a really bad Jerry Seinfeld bit. What is the deal with the FBI? Why are they even looking at these people? I mean, do you even look? Right. That it's just like riffing on this idea that it's not necessarily that they did anything wrong. It's just that these guys think your anagrams are showing, Clarice. Actually, it's the other way around. Your anagrams are showing, Doctor. Somebody in the chat swapped out the characters, and I can't take it. Anyways, so these are the okay. Here's the federal qualifications in case you ever want to be a whistleblower. Here's what it entails. Federal law only protects FBI employees from retaliation when they make claims that they, quote, reasonably believe, and that's obviously a big problem with these guys, because they have a lot of unreasonable beliefs, as you will see. Provide evidence of any violation of law, rule, regulation, or B, gross mismanagement, gross waste of funds, and abuse of authority, or of substantial and specific danger to public health or safety. None of the 3 witnesses interviewed to date comes close to meeting that determination. George Hill retired from the Boston field office as a supervisory intelligence analyst in October 21. Not a field agent, just a guy who, they parse through papers, essentially. I mean, it's good work and necessary, but, right. He claimed to have learned that a financial institution, oh dear God, provided the FBI with evidence it believed may be relevant to the January 6th Capitol attack investigations. Now, he had no evidence, he had no knowledge of the origin of the evidence, and since the financial institution, whatever it was, a bank or whoever it was, credit card company, supplied the information to the FBI voluntarily without being asked, you cannot be it's like if somebody walks up to you at a restaurant and you just sat down to order and they put a plate on your table full of food and you're like, I haven't ordered yet, and you're like, you still owe me for the plate of food. Like, you're not on the hook. You didn't ask for it. It just showed up. So, which is pretty great. That's one of his primary ones. He not only does he not know where it came from, but he does know that it was voluntarily given. He never used the evidence himself, and he never looked at the actual document containing the information. He never saw it. It's just gorgeous. Please tell me that was your jacket zipper. Anyways, I mean, it's a good story, Johnny. But simmer. We got to take a break.
A little slower, house party.
Easily. All right, we're now we got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. George Hill, Garrett, oh boy, and Stephen Friend have some nuggets for you guys that are just. I mean, they retweet Marjorie Taylor Greene and try to recognize that as evidence. I mean, come on. We'll be back.
Attention, stop what you're doing. Because we're coming back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Oh my God! They went a little crazy with it, and I appreciate it.
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I want to thank Berkeley Dowd and Carol Cobb and again Hal Vickery. Good Lord, man, bless you, thank you, and Diana Turner, and for that. And she says you're welcome. Well, I think you're no. Well, no, thank you. No, thank you.
Oh,
after
Wes. Did you see what Wes just did?
No, I haven't seen
Wes
it yet.
Wes just came in just underneath Hal Vickery.
That's amazing. Bless you.
Just
Thanks
so
so
he
much.
Wouldn't steal his thunder.
That's right. Try not to keep up with Hal Vickery. Love, joy, and peace to us all. Thanks so much.
You're the sweetest.
Yeah. There is a distinct level of paranoia among the Republicans right now, and if I could sum it up from watching CPAC, it's that apparently, if you follow what they're saying, every successful endeavor in the United States, anything that is actually functioning, profitable, busy, enjoyable, used by a lot of people, what have you, just, the creme de la creme of American industry and organizations are all out to get them. And I don't mean like in an elite form. I mean, we are this close to them coming out against Big Sharman, because the idea essentially from these folks is that big tech, big media, big woke corporation, big government, the deep state, everything. Everybody's against them. They just can't, get a break. And so I guess the idea is that they're trying to, and this, let me be completely honest. Do I personally believe that the media is out to get Republicans in general, or big tech, especially including Elon Musk and Twitter, are out to get them and are discriminating against them? Or is it that they have a real problem not saying violent, incendiary, gross, racist, sexist garbage in public in areas where people,
it gets repeated?
Yeah, and people have rules against that on social media and in restaurants and stuff like that, and they get asked to leave, and then they think their rights have been violated because they think they have a superseding right to blather on top like vile crap all over everybody else.
And there's a weird counter argument that holds zero water, where people will say, well, what if Biden did this thing that Trump did? And that, they'll ask a Democrat, and most Democrats will say, I'd say investigate him, throw him out of office.
Exactly.
He's not a deity. He's a public servant.
Exactly. He's hired to do a job. He's a temp. I got news for you.
It's a contract position.
It is, right. You can go at any time. That's what the impeachment process is for. But the other thing is it's not about the fact that what if somebody did it. That's a tacit admission on its own that Trump did do it. And the problem isn't that how would I feel if my guy did it? The problem is, why aren't you doing something about it when your guy does it? That's, it should seem self-evident, but apparently not. But in this particular instance, okay, so the Republicans on this, in this financial institution, whatever it is, because it's not listed, gave a list of like Proud Boys accounts or whatever it was to the FBI, because they're like, these people seem to be spending a lot of money back and forth leading up to January 6th, and it seems to be going to like gun dealerships or something like that. That's concerning for us, and we don't want to do business with those folks, so you might want to take a look. The Republicans' answer was, they go, committee Republicans emphasized that this list provided by this private institution was, quote, without any legal process. This claim is spurious because no legal process is required when an entity freely shares information with a federal agency. If you don't have to subpoena something that people are giving you willingly. If you have a problem with their ability to give it willingly, then the official policy of the Republican Party is snitches get stitches from now on, I guess.
Pretty much.
Right? So the biggest problem that they have with this is that a financial institution sees what it believes is a federal crime, passes that information on to the FBI, and that's the problem that the Republicans have. Not the crime itself, but how dare they? Also, I got news for you. If Republicans, if you want to engage in violent, stupid insurrections, you're going to have to start operating with, I guess, suitcases full of cash. Because the minute you participate in the financial system with everybody else, people tend to have a say. We don't, banks don't hold knowingly cartel money in the United States, for example. And if they find out that it's being hidden there, they turn it over to the federal government. Same thing. Essentially, what the Republicans would be wanting to set up with this sliver of crap in this one committee is an idea that a bank could not tell the feds, the DEA, the FBI, whoever, that a giant multinational terrorist organization or a drug cartel is laundering money through their facility. They would have to keep it to themselves. But back the blue, I guess. All right, sure. He also claimed that a supervisor in the Boston field office declined to investigate certain individuals who traveled to Washington on January 6th because he did not feel he had sufficient predicate to do so. While originally claiming that he was privy to these conversations firsthand, Hill later admitted that during Democratic questioning that he heard about the case secondhand, noting that his memory may be faulty. It's over 2 years ago, he said. Again, because of Hill's limited involvement in January 6 matters, it's unlikely he would have had personal knowledge. And so he's basically listening to stuff he heard on Telegram and Twitter.
Yeah.
And it is folding into his knowledge or beliefs about legal matters. Does that not seem like a horrifying aspect? Like, if you're talking about an egregious overreach, you want to talk about somebody needing to whistleblow on somebody. If you found out that you were working on a team as an FBI agent or a supervisory special agent or whatever with a guy who couldn't tell the difference between evidence he had read in a classified briefing or in particular documents or experienced during an interview with a suspect, and crap he read on Telegram, and in his reports commingled details from both of those places. Of course these guys were bounced. Of course these three guys, all of them, by the way, who did this, they all engaged in this. They all engaged in the commingling of, like mythological blather on the far right fringes of Telegram and Truth Social and Twitter and all that, like all those like different Parler, whatever. They would commingle what they'd read on there with the reality of the details in and of themselves. Can you imagine a judge in a case on Twitter while listening to testimony thinking he heard something from the defendant that he actually just saw in a trending line?
Yeah. Oof.
And the fact that the Republicans, let me be abundantly clear, the Republicans have set up a committee to defend this. That this is their idea of whistleblowers, and this is their idea of a functioning judicial system. It is right up, and believe me, like, this guy's the least of it. Hill is the now he tweets under like senior chief on something or other on Twitter. I'm not going to repeat it because I don't want people to go to whatever. But he was one of these guys who believed that January 6th was a setup, and that poor dough-headed maggots got lured into attacking the Capitol by Antifa and Black Lives Matter members, and Ray Epps, the maggot whisperer, who, had he not said, hey man, those cops are just doing their job, go easy, which is of course code for attack the Capitol, build a gallows, and steal things and crap in the rotunda and carry the Confederate flag.
God, I keep forgetting all the stuff they did.
Yeah. It's nasty. So apparently Ray Epps had MK Ultra like powers. It was like a whisper from Ray Epps telling you to cool it. What is the equivalent of reading Catcher in the Rye and being an assassin set out in, like, in the whatever the movie Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson.
Oh sure. Yeah.
He refers multiple times to the FBI as brown shirts, while being one himself. In a tweet, by the way, that he sends out, and this is from November 30th, 2022. This is recent. This is a tweet from Marjorie Taylor Greene that he says, the FBI are the brown shirt enforcers of the DNC. By the Bureau's own policy, they are obligated to disrupt if innocent lives are at risk. But Trump supporters aren't ever innocent, are they? Now, agents...
Not our fault.
FBI agents have to intervene, but confidential informants who are kind of on the side of the bad guys but don't want the bad guys to go too far, so might tell you if something really bad's going to go down but don't care if the drug deals continue, that kind of those, they're not going to interject, and they're not going to be a confidential informant for very long if they interject at the first immoral, unethical, or violent thing that they're a participant in. They themselves, if they, and by the way, you lose your confidential informant status these days. I don't know what it was like in the mid 80s, but you lose your status these days if you participate in a murder or a major violent assault and those kind of things. So
weird.
maybe just maybe that was the whole point of Cool It. But Rep Margie MTG says over here, she says, if the FBI had so many informants inside a group, why don't they stop J6 from happening? Okay, so the informants, by the way, we're saying that there were people prepping to do this kind of thing, but up till the point of where they walked up there, Trump had removed his statement about we're all going to walk down and I'm going to go with you. He originally had that in the speech. He was told by his legal counsel, John Eastman, and others that if it was in there, they would have to get a permit for a march, and this would let the Capitol know they were coming. And that would raise the security at the Capitol. And therefore, he removed that statement from his speech so he could catch the Capitol Police with their pants down, effectively. They would have less security because there was never an intention for them to lead a march directly to the Capitol. He always intended to do it. He took it out of the speech and he said it verbally and didn't tell his Secret Service detail that he planned to do it because he didn't want to tip off the Capitol that a giant crowd of maggots was coming to attack them and build a gallows and were carrying guns. And he had removed all the, the metal detectors because he was like, they're not here to shoot me. All that. I mean, that guy, the amount of evidence that points to he was trying to create plausible deniability on the top and underneath was fomenting this violent attack on the Capitol is overwhelming. Anyways, she follows it up. Ashley Babbitt was killed on J6. Roseanne Boylan was beaten, trampled, and dragged down the hall away from life-saving CPR being administered. They would be alive if the FBI had stopped it. Roseanne Boylan
really
was trampled by Jan Sixers. If you'll recall, in a fit of horrifying irony, she was pictured earlier in the day carrying a "Don't Tread on Me" flag. Ultimately, by the way, she died of an amphetamines overdose during so her agitated heartbeat matched with the amount of amphetamines in her system during this particular onslaught. She was stomped by her fellow Jan Sixers, her fellow Trump fans. And they, failing to give her CPR, dragged her over to the very police they themselves were attacking and said, save her. And the police tried. They pulled her away from the crowd and continued CPR, and then they eventually got her taken away on a gurney and tried to clear a path. For a woman that was in a group that was directly attacking them, who, by the way, apparently died for a lie. Died thinking, I suppose, that she was fighting for Donald Trump, when in reality, she was just being led astray by Antifa and BLM. She was suckered into being curb stomped by her fellow travelers. And her life was lost for nothing. Along with, by the way, I guess, Ashley Babbitt. Because if indeed it was a setup, then the people who died were not indeed martyrs for a cause, but suckers and losers, which is what Donald Trump allegedly said about American soldiers. We got to take a break. When we come back, I couldn't even get through one of these guys in the last segment. There's morons. We'll be back.
Yeah.
I know I'm only on one day a week. I get it. I'm gonna have to jump on GarageBand and start sawing something together. This is the Hal Sparks Show. Wow. And a guitar note, and then progressive and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Hey, Hal, did you mean something like this?
This is the Hal Sparks Show. Wow. And a guitar note, and then progressive and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
The Hal Sparks radio program, mega worldwide.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Johnny Million, today's show is just zipping by the way, I have to say. Does it seem like it's been like 10 minutes we've been on the air? It's kind of amazing.
Seriously.
Johnny, during the break, we were discussing you getting down a rabbit hole about sovereign citizens. And we're going to have to address at some point the sovereign citizens are the weird, adopted, psychotic mindhunter kid of libertarians. That this is naturally what happens when, like, libertarianism taken to its idiotic ends always entails sovereign citizens movements. That's where it's gonna go. That's, for all, and if you bring this up, they all get mad, but they'll also go, well, Democrats is communism. You're like, okay, what about democratic policies are communistic, especially the part where everybody gets a vote, which in a communist country, you don't ever. So anyways, we're going to have a big show about that in the near future, because the Moorish Americans, the sovereign citizen movement, these and a lot of these folks are very violent. And if you'll recall, when the FBI was brought before a committee, I think last year or year before last, and there was a big uproar on the right about how they were saying our biggest domestic threat is white supremacist groups and other like anti-government militia style groups. And the story, if you watched Glenn Beck or any of these other people afterwards, all week long for a month afterwards, was this, that the FBI thinks the biggest threat in the world is white supremacy and domestic, terror groups. No, that is the biggest domestic threat of the domestic threats that we face in general. That's the biggest threat we have. The foreign and the weird thing is they would constantly do this kind of like bigger than China, bigger than whatever. You're like, that's not a domestic threat, dum-dum. That's a foreign threat. Go talk to the DNI and the CIA and the DOD and the Pentagon and all that. They handle outside the borders. We handle inside. You asked us about domestic stuff. We're trying to tell you. So one of the fascinating parts, with this crowd in particular, was that one of these FBI guys that got kicked, this guy, his last name is Louis Friend. No, Steve Friend. Said he lived in Baltimore, but may have lied. That's all I remember.
His last name is Fitzinia.
Donut. Yeah, everybody calls him Donut. All right,
or Dick.
That's so wrong. Richard, during his interview, this is one of my so Friend, this one particular guy, and they're all like anti-vax. They all had trouble apparently. Like I think he's the one that got put because he wouldn't be tested. He would get you could apply for a vaccine, like to have to get out of the vaccine mandate for a myriad of reasons. Get a doctor's note, tell them it's a religious thing. You could get around it all kinds of ways. But testing was a regular part of it. Like, we don't care if you're going to get the inoculation, but if you do get sick, stay home. Don't make everybody else sick. So he refused testing. And they told him, go home without pay, and you're considered AWOL. You're absent without leave because you can't be here. If you refuse to get tested for an infectious disease that we're currently dealing with on a pandemic level. Are you an idiot? Are you trying to kill every one of your coworkers that might have a comorbidity that they don't even know about at this point? It's just, like, guy's a goon. Anyways, one of his things was, and I'm sure you're familiar, Johnny Million, with the Domestic Investigations and Operations Guide. You've perused it.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure.
That's actually toilet side reading for me.
It is, absolutely. It's kind of calming.
Mm-hmm.
It helps you relax.
Gets me in the mood.
So the DIOG, as it's called, is the general guide for the FBI on how they do domestic operations and investigations. Hence the name. And they go by that in general. And this guy's big complaint, his big like slam on the FBI, his big insistence was that the FBI, in its pursuit of Jan 6ers and the related bodies, the 3%ers and the Proud Boys and all those groups, varied from DIOG guidelines. That was his thing. Now, do you think it is allowed, Johnny Million, that FBI agents, special investigators, supervisory agents, analysts can sometimes go beyond the guidelines? Does it sound, just from the general title of such a thing, does it sound like on occasion, if need be, you can make a decision, or someone above you can make a decision, that you can go beyond the guidelines?
Seems like you might have to in some
Seems like
instances.
you might have to at times. Now, during his interview, Friend admitted that he was not involved in the decision-making process around how Jan 6 cases would be handled across the FBI, and was not in a supervisory position during his tenure at the Dayton Beach Residency Agency. Did not participate in regular FBI-wide calls related to Capitol insurrection cases, and had no information as to whether a departure from the DIOG had been authorized for the investigation of events related to the January 6th Capitol attack. That's not surprising at all. He has no idea whether everybody's gone, okay, this is obviously a big deal, so we're going to have to do this instead of this, but generally we want to do this, but we might have to do this. So he viewed that as exculpatory evidence, the going outside the DIOG guidelines to go after these like individuals and groups that were loosely or tightly connected and intermingled, that not sticking to the guidelines, the fact that they didn't stick to the guidelines in this regard, he believed that should be given to the January 6 detainees, the people who are on trial for what they've done, as exculpatory evidence, that they should say, I should be let loose because the FBI didn't follow their own guidelines. Now, in fact, Friend admitted that he does not know if the FBI is using the DIOG as the controlling authority for the January 6 cases. Now, that would seem like, Johnny Million, that there might be another guidebook that relates to other stuff in particular. Or whether it was relying on another, yes, Dianetics, another authority in place of or addition to the DIOG. For example, the Counterterrorism Program Guide is a classified document that provides specific guidance for handling mass events and often supplements the DIOG in very large, complex criminal cases. When asked, Friend admitted that he had no knowledge or familiarity with the FBI Counterterrorism Program Guide or its guidelines for managing cases related to a mass event or a large, complex criminal case, which I think applies to January 6th. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that a herd of maggots attacking the Capitol, building a gallows, intending to shoot the Speaker of the House, murder even members of the party that they purport to support. Did I lose you for a second? We lost Johnny Million for a second. He dropped out. We had a cat fight. He went away. He'll be back. He'll find his way back in. But here he comes. There he is. Welcome back.
What happened?
I think it was a cat thing. I think it was just too much fur in one shot. But you're here.
Probably.
You're all good. Hi, Flora.
Somebody did a super chat for a Flora swear jar, which made me laugh.
Yeah. So anyways, we got to take a break. We'll be back. Philip Hittner's going to be joining us on the other side of this. But I would like to make abundantly clear, these are the top 3 whistleblowers. These are the people that Jim Jordan insisted on bringing before the committee as soon as possible. But he's got dozens and dozens more that they're not quite as up to that, not quite there, but eventually it's going to be awesome. Just hang out. In 2 weeks, right after Trump's taxes and his infrastructure bill and his healthcare plan, there's going to be 2 weeks from now, the committee for the weaponization of the government will continue to weaponize the government against nobody. We'll be back.